think when we raised capital and then we started scaling the business, things got really overwhelming, right? The team grew from 30 to 60 to 90 to 120 in like 1 year. And the business grew from 50 lakhs to 2 crores, 3 crores, 4 crores, 5 crores a month very, very fast.
Right.
We grew from 1 office space to 7 office spaces on the same floor. So in all of this, I was like, dude, I think maybe we are losing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So we started actually doing a Jan 1st goal setting, personal and professional, which while we were running Dr. Vaidya's, we would get a graphic artist to illustrate it and we'd make it our phone wallpaper. Think about it. Every living minute you spend thinking about one thing. And then suddenly you just say it's gone, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very odd feeling at that time.
Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host Jivraj, and today I have me a very special guest. The guest on today's podcast has been a founder, is an investor, is a father, is a helper, he's an educator and an influencer and so much more. Join me in welcoming Arjun Vaidya on the show. How are you doing,
Jivraj?
Arjun?
This is a long time in the making, but I'm
yeah.
so excited to be on this show with you. And it actually reminds me of the first time we met, right? We met while you were in college running this page called Ace Humans.
Yes.
And that's the first time you interviewed me. So
Yes.
excited to do this all over again.
It's been such a long time, and I can't express how thankful I've been to you, and I continue to be for all that you do. It's just the energy you radiate, the support you show, the person you are, right? Like in whole, it means a lot to a lot of people, I'm sure, but to me especially. And I want to acknowledge that in front of everybody because the entire world needs to know how amazing you are. And part of this podcast is to explore so much of your personal side, right? Because I think you've been able to manage this founder journey. You've been able to manage the investor journey. You now educate people with your cohort and pass on the learning so generously. And there's a lot of great threads to it. Where I want to begin is with exactly stating, right? Like a lot of people use the phrase jack of all trades, master of none. I think for you, it's master of all trades, jack of none. Talk to us about how you do this, right? Like just as a personal philosophy, you take something, become great at it and continue doing it and it never tires you.
See, Jivraj, I'm a big cricket fan, as you know. And I remember when I was in the 11th grade, Harsha Bhogle came to my school and he gave us a talk. And he said one thing which stayed with me all my life. He said, if you do something that has your name on it, it has to be 11 on 10 or it can't have your name on it. So every time when I have a conversation with someone about something I'm doing, I'm also asking them, is it good? Is it okay? People think I'm like some random guy trying to ask them a trick question. I'm genuinely asking. Like, I ask you sometimes, hey Jivraj, what do you think of that investment? What do you think of that LinkedIn post I wrote? Anything you can help me with, right? And I think that what he told me stayed with me, and that remains part of my thought process every time. You can't be mediocre at something if it's got your name on it. You can't half-ass anything, and be constantly open to iterating and getting better, right? So, for example, I've talked about this very openly with you and with other people as well. There are a lot of people, and there is an age gap between us, right? We met when you were still in college. I was in my 3rd year of building my company. Yeah. Now, there are a lot of people who at my age will say, hey, like, I know this guy, he's younger and I mentor him sometimes and this, that, whatever. I actually have an opposite way to think about it. Every time we speak, while you may gain something, I also gain something. So for me, this relationship is not, oh, he's a younger guy, mentor, mentee, etc. All of that. No, it's friendship. Yeah. And both ways, right? Yeah. So for example, I have a lot of friends who are 40 plus. Mm-hmm. And it's not like they are my mentor, big brother. Some are, but not all of them are, right? And I think that ability to be able to open yourself without ego to people to get better is a skill that I've seen with the best founders in our country.
So true.
If you look at all the most successful founders in our ecosystem, they're the most humble people. They're the people with least ego. And they're the people who, like I was with a very large QSR founder yesterday and he was like, sir, आपकी तो बहुत बड़ी नेटवर्क है. जब भी कोई पार्टी है घर पे हमारी ब्रांड का याद कर लो एंड हमसे ही ऑर्डर कर लो एंड कुछ भी चाहिए बॉम्बे में पार्टी के लिए तो मुझे बता दो हम भेज देंगे हमारे रेस्टोरेंट से राइट ही इज गॉट लाइक 50-60 locations for his restaurants, but he remembered that. I think that's a very, very important skill that I've seen.
Absolutely. Oh, that's wonderful. I think goes to show that I especially love that 11 on 10 philosophy. I'm not sure how many people can live it, but you've shown in action that it's possible. And that's the second piece, right? A large part of what you end up doing, and this is going to seem like a place where I'm, praising you a lot, but it is true that you are able to manage relationships really well. This is something that inevitably gets lost because founders, investors are sometimes too driven on the outcome, right? And outcomes may mean sales, may mean a deal, etc. But your human skills are especially above par, and that shows and across the board. What do you think you get right and maybe people get wrong?
I don't know about right and wrong, but I'll tell you my philosophy. It's relationships versus transactions for me. I think over the years, we have built a relationship. It's not basis, hey, you got this deal, I got this deal, let's do this deal, let's talk about this deal, let's only talk when we have a deal, etc. All of that. You've been to my home a few times. Yeah. I've seen your city with you a few times, etc. All of that. We do deals together. We invest together. That's for sure. But I have a deep level of trust. If Jivraj sends me something, it's very different from someone who I don't know who sends me something, right? And so I think for me, it's always relationship first, transaction next. And I think in our world, whether it's the startup world, whether it's the investor world, whether it's the VC world, I think sometimes people get this wrong. Right. They are very transactional about their relationships. Maybe they have certain close friends, maybe certain family who they are very relationship focused with. But I think that should translate to all parts of your life. Yeah. And respect should be shown to everyone. Right. Because you never know when you could work with someone on something. Right? But if you rub someone the wrong way, if you're not kind to the person, you're not nice to the person, I think these are all important things that I've grown up with, right? Like respect of everyone across whatever they do for you is really important. And I live by that.
Absolutely. Oh, so true. I think I can attest to the fact that you've done all of this and much more, and it just shows. The third abstract point that I wanted to bring up and that I've observed over the years is just you're purely yourself, right? And unapologetically so you carry your values, you're vocal about them, and you're just candid all the time. It's not like there's a different work Arjun, there's a different fun Arjun, nothing of the kind, right? Talk to us about how that happens, right? It comes from a safe space of being, okay with who you are. It comes with practice, I'm guessing. Talk to us about that piece, because a lot of people seem to struggle with this, right? Being themselves.
Yeah, look, I think that I am not able to feign. I'm not able to be someone else in different situations. And so I think that I've chosen to be comfortable in who I am. It's not easy, right? It's not easy to be candid, to be open. And I think at times people also find me a little bit odd that I'm friendly with everyone. I go for a hug instead of a shake hand sometimes, right? But I think that's who I am, right? Like people say, yeah, how come you're so friendly with all these startup founders, even if you've not invested in their companies? But actually, they're my friends, yeah. Like the startup ecosystem is also my friends, right? Like when I come to Delhi, I stay with Apax, the founder of One Impression. I was a client of his. Yeah. Right? He was a service provider to us at Dr. Vaidya's. Right. Then I'm an investor in his company. But over all of that, we're friends. Yeah. When he comes to Bombay, he'll stay at my home. When I go to Bangalore, I stay at Vasant's home. He's the founder of Veda VC. We've done a lot of deals together. Yeah. I've invested in his fund. And I think that's something that transcends work, right? And that relationship may lead to something from a work perspective, but that's what I live by.
Super. I'm so glad, we could get this out, because I think, at least in my brief observation and the pleasure of knowing you, I've observed these three threads very distinctly. As we proceed, right, we've all heard stories of how the Dr. Vaidya story came to being, but I want to share a personal anecdote. I first heard about Dr. Vaidya's The Exit, right, when I heard it from a friend, Ashutosh actually, right, and he told me that it's happening, and it was a big shocker for me. Because
and you sent me a message.
Yeah, exactly how. So I just wanted to understand from you that in hindsight, right, now it's been 2 years, how did that decision pan out with all the learnings? It was a very personal decision for you as well, not just from a brand perspective, but you are just a founder at heart, right? Like you radiate that energy. Talk to us about, in retrospect, how that decision panned out, and what do you still feel about, that builder mindset inside you? How do you scratch that itch?
Look, the builder mindset will never go away. Hindsight is always 20/20, but I'm a big believer in the journey. Mm-hmm. So, people ask me, What would you change? Would you have not exited?
Yeah.
Would you have stayed and grown the business? Are there legs left in Dr. Vaidya's for growth? Yes. Is it a fantastic brand? Yes. Do I regret selling? No. I think at that time, the decision we took, and I'll tell you about exits in general, right? Jivraj may have been in Arjun's position at that time and taken a different decision.
Yeah.
And Jivraj may have been in Arjun's position at that time and taking the same decision. We don't know.
Right.
But it's a very personal decision that the founders have to take, right? When people come to me and say, dude, you shouldn't have sold, it was too early, etc., all of that. It's fine to have that opinion, but really do you know what was going on with the founder, right? So I think any exit, the only person who can take this, there's no right or wrong, is the founder or group of founders. And for me, it was Trisha and I. Now, why did we take that decision? Honestly, we had reached a position where we thought maybe the next leg of exponential growth, not growth, because growth was available for Dr. Vaidya's online. The next leg of exponential growth for Dr. Vaidya's was in the offline space. We had already failed once in the offline space. And so if that was something we were not best at doing, and we had the company's best interest at heart, which was to take forward the company to scale it, then it seemed like it would be better in somebody else's hands. Having said that, we got paid very fair value, right? Yeah. So had we not been getting what we wanted, we may not have taken that decision. But we got paid fair value and we thought the future was offline. And obviously our investors had great prowess and experience in building offline. So I think that's the
it checked out well.
Basis for the decision. Having said that, there are nuances to an exit which people don't talk about enough. For example, we accepted the idea to exit and then we closed the formalities, but we obviously didn't close it openly in the office and discuss it with the team. And so there was a time a few days later when we had to tell the team. Now the night before that happened, I couldn't sleep. Because that moment of telling the team, I know I preempted what people would go through. Yeah. I don't cry a lot. I have cried publicly twice. Once when I graduated from college because I would miss my college experience too much. And the second time was when I was telling my team and Dr. Vaidya. I broke down, right? Because think about it. Every living minute you spend thinking about one thing. And then suddenly you just say it's gone, right?
Yeah.
And it was a very odd feeling at that time to tell my team. And then I remember that day nobody worked. Nobody in the team could work. There were other people from the team also who were crying. They couldn't process it. So we gave them all time. I said, my door is open. You want to have a one-on-one chat with me? You want to have an open chat with me? You come. Ask me whatever questions you want. Yeah. The one thing I can tell you is your job is not on the line. That's something I've secured. This is an exit in a positive time for the business.
Correct.
Not a negative time for the business. So all of your jobs are secured. And that day, I think it took everyone time to process, but eventually everyone came around. I think the most beautiful day we had at Dr. Vaidya's was our last day in the office. So somewhere around March 2021. And it was the last day we were going to go to the office. We had almost finished handing over the business and whatever's left we do it virtually. And so our office was on the 6th floor of a building. So we went up on the elevator and everyone knew it was our last day. And then from the elevator till our work desks, and Trisha and I used to sit quite close to each other. From the elevator to our work desk, the entire team was standing like, when a batsman scores 100 and is going back to the pavilion, right? Yeah. And everyone was clapping as we walked in the office and everyone gave us a flower rose with a note, a personalized note, right? And it was very emotional moment. And we had a beautiful day. We spent time with the team. But then, two moments actually were very put a lot of things into perspective. One moment was at 8 p.m. Everyone had left. The team had said goodbye to us. All of that. We had taken our photos. And then I had to pack up, right? And it was 4.5, 5 years of work by then. I packed my life at Dr. Vaidya's up in 2 boxes and I left. And that is actually a very deep thought, right?
Yeah.
We attach so much importance to so many things and think so many things are permanent. And then 2 boxes and 20 minutes, 30 minutes and my life at Dr. Vaidya's is packed, right? That was number one. We had a really beautiful end to our time at Dr. Vaidya's. Other than this whole thing that I talked about the team, we called our both sets of parents and both sets of siblings to the office. So my mom, dad, Trisha's mom, dad, my brother, Trisha's brother, Trisha's sister-in-law, all came to the office. We sat on that same lunch table that we used to sit on every day.
Wow, so sweet.
And we ordered pizza and we sort of ended there. I remember as I walked out of the office, my dad said one thing to me. He said, you're 29 years old. You have the opportunity to pause in life, stop, reflect and look forward. I'm 55. I've not had this opportunity. Yeah. Use this time well. that was a very, very important thing that he said to me. And it made me realize that I was actually very fortunate to be able to see all that I saw in such a short period of time and get that whole experience. And I'm always really thankful for that.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. I think the entire story and how things worked out, right? I'm sure nobody can understand. Like from the outside, it looked like why, but of course, I'm sure.
No, I
like,
remember you
somebody-
messaged me as well, like very clearly.
Yeah, exactly. No, because I was like, there was a personal feeling to it, right? The energy that you.
But there are a lot of
radiate
people who
is
messaged me saying like, we can't imagine Dr. Vaidya's without you, right? And that is a natural feeling, and it's a good feeling also to think about like people really like the work I did, etc. That because look, while you're working, nobody knows, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody tells you all the time
Exactly.
that. So I think it was a nice feeling, but yeah, the brand is
Yeah,
still
it worked
continuing
out
to
the way it
thrive.
should, and so glad. I think looking back, I mean, you've done so much more post that, and there's so many people you've now become an example for, because of whom people will perhaps start their brands, right? Like this journey now means that people can look up to it and perhaps like go on their journey. So that means so much. That impact is difficult to put into words, I think. But lovely, I think this is so important. Very interestingly, what did you end up doing with that time? That time that you got free, you ended up taking, of course, the decision to
Yeah,
start
so it was
VC.
April 21. We had actually planned to move to London
Oh, okay.
because Trisha used to live there after she graduated from college. She worked at Goldman
Yeah.
there for a few years. And I liked the city, and I just thought, when in life would we have the opportunity to live outside
Yeah.
of India, have no baggage, and just pick up our bags and leave, because nothing was keeping us to India at that time. Fortunately or unfortunately, second wave hit, right? COVID
Right,
second wave
yes.
hit. And so we
That
couldn't
didn't
go.
I didn't know this.
No, we
at
couldn't
all.
go to London at that time. So I started trying to do all the things I wished I could have done, right?
Oh,
Like
nice. What's that list like?
play squash on a weekday at 10 a.m. at the club. I really wanted to improve my table tennis game. So I'd got a
Nice.
table tennis coach to
wow.
come to the building at like 2, 3 p.m. He'd come to the building. And for a few weeks, like 2, 3 weeks, I was free.
Nice.
Free as hell. Like if you called me to meet, I would meet, I would be
Yeah,
free,
yeah.
etc. We traveled also quite a bit. So we saw, we went to Ranthambore, we went to Chandigarh, we went to Kovalam, we visited Gangtok, we visited Shillong. So we saw a lot of India and really enjoyed that. We visited a place in Uttarakhand called Kanatal, which was one of the best family holidays that we had. We went for a week there. So saw a lot of India because, I mean, the restrictions prevented us from traveling abroad. And I think that time was really beautiful and really nice for us. I think with time you get busy, right? And
Yeah,
you don't know how you get busy, but eventually you get busy. So then we decided to move actually to our home outside of Bombay in Alibag for about 2.5 months. But I remember I had a full work day there. I would work out in the
Nice.
morning, and then from like 11 to 8 I'd be on calls and Zoom calls and
That's
stuff like that.
nature.
So life started with just pro bono, advising, helping, mentoring founders.
Yeah, I remember that.
That led to eventually making some investments, angel investments. That was really fun. Then we invested in Growth School. That led to creating our cohort-based course in Growth School, and education or sort of that part is an important part of our lives now, and we really enjoy that. That started then at that time period. And then I, by chance, got connected serendipitously to Volinvest, and they were looking to set up a VC business with ex-founders. So they were looking for an ex-founder who's built and sold a consumer business, who's below the age of 40, who still wants to do something in life and is interested in early stage investing. And it seemed like it was a role that was made for me in some sense, but I didn't know them, right? So we got to know each other, and they were very kind to spend time. And Arjun Anand, who runs the private equity business for Volinvest in Asia, he said, let's speak every week. So every Monday we would get on a call and we would discuss what can be done, where the gap is, where the market is, etc. And then from there, it sort of led to meeting other folks in the team, meeting the senior management. And then they said, why don't you just join us at our offsite in Spain?
Right.
We're having an offsite in Spain, so why don't you join us there? And then I said, amazing. It's the perfect opportunity to go to London now, because by then things had opened, right? So we went to London, I think it was 2 weeks before that offsite, and we planned to stay 1 week after that offsite. So it was almost 4 weeks in London. And, tick that off the bucket list that, okay, because when you go to a place for a vacation, when you go to a place and you sort of stay there, it's very different, right? So
True.
we went there for close to a month. I think the time before the offsite, it was October, it was warm, it was good weather, it was nice, we had a great time, all of that. Then I went to the offsite and I came back and it was cold. It was November. And we spent the first 4 or 5 days of November in London. I was like,
This is not
get
gonna
me
happen."
back home now. And then that sort of thought has been totally removed from my mind. And yeah, I think
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future or probably for the rest of my life, I'll be here and I'm happy here.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine you not being in Bombay with all the Mumbai Indians.
Yeah, look, I think it was just a point in time, right, where you have something you never had access to try it. But
Yeah.
I can't imagine living anywhere else. But I will say I'm one of the few Bombay people who likes Delhi and Bangalore.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're by nature you like the places as well. But
Yeah.
I think by heart you want
Heart-
to stay
heart
like a
Bombay.
Bombay kid.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's lovely. But you know what's exciting is that reflection, right? Do you think that has to become a constant part of life, or do you need these bouts of maybe pause, right, where you have to go and really take a hard look at if you're on the right direction, etc. What do you think about that?
It's a very tough question, actually, Jivraj. To be honest, you have moments of reflection all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going through something, when you're in something, when you're in between something, when you're on a vacation, when you're taking a Sunday off, you have moments of reflection, but they're not full-fledged like this was. You cannot take 1 month off.
Right.
In our world, when can you take 1 month off, right? So I think our moments of reflection and a period of pause is very different.
Yeah.
And I don't know when I'll ever get it back. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
honestly.
Exactly. So do you proactively now reflect? Like, is it a part of what you do, or is it more like when it happens?
So actually, we started a practice while we were running Dr. Vaidya's, maybe from 2019. So I think when we raised capital and then we started scaling the business, things got really overwhelming, right? The team grew from 30 to 60 to 90 to 120 in like 1 year. And the business grew from 50 lakhs to 2 crores, 3 crores, 4 crores, 5 crores a month very, very fast.
Right.
We grew from 1 office space to 7 office spaces on the same floor. So in all of this, I was like, dude, I think maybe we are
Still
losing
fast.
ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So we started actually doing a Jan 1st goal setting, personal and professional, which while we were running Dr. Vaidya's, we would get a graphic artist to illustrate it and we'd make it our phone wallpaper. So what are our personal and professional goals? And we had different goals. And we do a 6-monthly check-in and we still continue that today. Personal and professional, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? Trisha and I do this activity on Jan 1st or close to the starting of the year every year.
Yeah. Awesome. And this freedom, right? Like what you put in so many words is basically having the freedom to be able to do whatever you'd like at whatever point. How fulfilling was that, or did you feel this itch to get just
Grass
like
is
that?
green on the other side, right? You dream that okay, you can play TT. Like there's a friend of my dad who has sold his company a long time back, and he's one of the happiest people I know, right? He just has a good time in life now. He has some investments and stuff, but he does what he likes whenever he likes, right? So he would keep calling me while I was running Doctor and saying he's very into sailing and stuff. So he's like, I'm taking a sailboat out on a weekday at 5 p.m. Can you join me?
Oh, wow.
And I
used
was
to
like,
feel-
no, I can't join you. Can we plan this well in advance and on a weekend, please, right? And so one random day after we sold Dr. Wells, he called me and he said, dude, I'm taking a sailboat out. We're going to this XYZ place. It's a beautiful place. At 5 p.m. today, will you join me? And I said, yes, I'll join you. And
How
I
was
felt like,
that?
wow, I can go on a sailboat. I can have a glass of champagne at 6 p.m., 5:30 p.m. and stuff like that. And it felt really cool. But I think it was grass is greener, right? So
Yeah.
it was really exciting at that time, and then the sheen sort of wore off pretty
Got
quickly.
it. Oh, this is interesting. I mean, I've never gotten a chance to speak to you about this bit, right? But coming to the other side, one of the other very fascinating aspects about your entire whatever you do with Dr. Vaidya's as well, the mission, the family story is very deep. What I want to understand more so is if you can condense your family values, right? This is something you've spoken about the stories, you've spoken about your dadu, you've spoken about how everything worked out. But I'd love to know if you can condense your learnings from just a value standpoint, because it looks like you've carried so much of it to date, and your family still remains so close to you, right? You're a very integral family person. You're close to your dad. You talk about it very often. Trisha and you, of course, build the business together. Your brother, everybody.
So I would say there are
Now there's
5.
Aisha also.
Yeah, there are 5 H's actually that we live by as a family, and my grandfather sort of instituted this in my life, and so does my dad, and I try to live by this, right? Hard work is our strength. I'm not someone who gets things easily. I have to work harder than most people, and I'm okay with that. I'm not a smart worker, I'm a hard worker. So hard work is our strength. Humility is our equity. I remember my granddad used to go to work every day wearing a white safari suit with black, beautifully polished shoes, but he had a 5 rupee pen in his pocket. And I'd ask him why he had that 5 rupee red pen in his pocket. He said, it reminds me where I came from. And I'll never forget that. Then, happy to work and happier to achieve. Like you can tell, I'm always happy at work.
Happy.
I'm energetic. 100% and nothing less. Like, as I said, if it has your name on it, it has to be sort of 11 on 10. So I think that's what we try to live by, and it's something that means a lot to me more than just philosophies and principles. We truly implement these kind of things.
Yeah. No, it shows, I think, and that's a great framework. I did not know that.
The one I forgot actually was honesty is our practice. Yeah, I said 5 H's, right? So I forgot honesty is our practice. So I actually had no qualms in telling my parents when I screw up, when I was a kid as well, because they said, tell us. You won't get screamed at, but tell us, right? And so we have a very open, transparent policy in the family. I remember once in college, I partied too hard, and obviously when you party too hard, you fall sick, right? And I fell sick and whatever, had a rough night. First person I called was my dad, and I told him this. And thinking to myself, parents are spending their hard-earned money to send me to this Ivy League institution to study, and here I am partying because I got a promotion at the college newspaper.
Yeah.
But he was totally okay. He said, look, you made a mistake. I know you are feeling worse than I am about it. It's totally uncalled for and unacceptable. But don't do it again. And you know you shouldn't do it again. So there's nothing for me to say. So there's not that fear, oh, I'll call my dad. He'll call me back to India because I did this and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. And that's beautiful. I think goes to show what strong values, especially from a childhood lens, can do. And I think that shows in your life, in your career, in your just personal values as well. So lovely to hear that. I think the other aspect, right, now you spend a lot of your time talking to a bunch of young folks, elderly folks, experienced folks who are doing great stuff in their own lens. Being on the other side where you don't have much to control, yet there is much to pass on in terms of wisdom. What do you think that role is like, right? Like mentorship, coaching is often used as very loosely held words, right? However, you must see it differently because you've been on the other side. You know what it means to be on the other side, but you can't do much about it. So how do you navigate that piece?
To be honest, initially I couldn't do it. Like it's not like I couldn't do it, but I would feel like imposter syndrome. Like I know this guy is going to go wrong.
Exactly.
And I've invested in him, or even if I've not invested in him, I know he's going to go wrong. Should I stop him, right?
Yeah.
And as a founder who's operationally built things, it's difficult to watch someone go wrong. And I would see it with my dad with me as well.
Yeah.
He would say, dude, you're really going wrong right now, but I can't stop you. And then he was not, fortunately for me, he was not the I told you so guy, right? So when I would make the mistake, he wouldn't say I told you so. But I think there has to be acceptance when you move to this side of the table that you are backing people and you're backing their ability, and they will do things differently from you and they'll see things different from you. Yeah. And that's okay. That's fine. Right? And so that's what I sort of have adopted now. I've invested in a lot of companies, but I've backed people, and I'm a minority shareholder in those companies. I will advise, I will help, I will make introductions, I'll lead these people in the right direction, but that's where my role ends. And I'm always available.
Right.
There's a founder I didn't invest in who's from your city yesterday, who called me at 9:30 p.m. I was driving back from the airport. He has other investors on his capital. He called me for advice and said, I need some help figuring out what I should do for my next round. And I spoke to him for 5-10 minutes. I gave him that advice. So that I'm always available for. But I'm not the captain of the ship. I'm not on the steering wheel. I'm the guy who helps the captain put the sails up on a stormy day. That's my role. Right? And that's very clear for me.
Got it. Oh, that's brilliant. I think
when a founder comes to me and says, I really want you on my capital because I don't understand performance marketing, you'll have to do that for me. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to lie to you and say I'm going to do it for you.
Exactly.
I'm not going to come and sit in your office and run your Facebook ads. I've done it before. I know how to do it, but that's not my role.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and I think that perfectly articulates how investors need
No,
to
and I think it's very important to be honest about that as well, right? To be like, hey,
can't overpromise.
I hate overpromising.
Yeah.
When a founder says, can you be my mentor, give me 1 hour every month? I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I have so many portfolio companies, so many people I'm
Exactly.
already spending time with. How can I just tell you I'll give you 1 hour every month? I can't
Yeah.
commit to something I'm not
Yeah.
capable of doing, right?
Yeah, so true. I think that's how investors need to be, or at least that's what conventional wisdom says. And your practice, of course, goes a long way. About this time bit, right? I've personally observed that you're almost always available. But that, of course, comes at a cost, right? There's so many things that you are interested in. You take care of your health. You like to, watch a match or two, etc. You're working. You have so many portfolio companies. How do you manage time, or much rather, how do you actually prioritize, right? Because in your list of life things and career professional aspects, what is your priority list like?
It has led to lots of unread WhatsApps and LinkedIn messages, which
I
I
can't
need to
imagine
find
that.
some time to get to. But look, Jivraj, I'm not good at it. I need to get better at prioritization. I have a problem in, I'm not the best at being able to say no. And so I've got myself into a lot of situations. I'm currently in a lot of situations where I've committed to something, but I can't do it. But look, I'm very passionate about what I do. And so I'm okay if Jivraj tells me, hey, I'm in your city and I have only a 10 p.m. slot. And I say, hey, Jivraj, I'm really busy today. Can we meet at 10? And he says to me, you have a young kid at home. Like, how can you meet me at 10? I'm like, no, come home. We'll sit, right? And we'll have that conversation. So I think I love what I do. And I'm willing to give it more time than other people are. And I'm
Right.
willing to invest more effort than most people are. Hard work is my moat, both at work and on the football field as well. I'm not a talented footballer. I don't have a great touch on the ball. I don't score goals, but I can outrun anyone who plays with me 2 times.
Yeah.
And that's my philosophy at
And
work
that's
as
how
well.
you win.
That's how I win.
Yeah.
Yuvraj Singh had much more talent, right? So he won on talent. I don't have that
Correct,
talent.
correct. Yeah, everybody has to recognize their strengths. But does this come at a cost, right? Like you being available for most people at most times. Like what's the downside of it? Like what is that thing that we don't hear but happens in the background?
Yeah, I think, look, I have not spent as much time with my baby as I would have liked to. I do make it a point to spend as much time as I can, and I travel a little bit less, but uh, I haven't done enough, and I'll keep getting better, and I'll figure out the right way to prioritize. But I think sometimes that gets missed, and that's not the right thing to do.
Got
With
it.
friends, with family, everything
Yeah.
becomes about work. My family's told me that. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that as well. So we've now instituted at least one meal every Sunday, the full family together.
Very nice.
First half of Sunday, no calls allowed because that's Aisha time. So I think
Yeah.
slowly these things are happening, but
course.
I need to get better.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious on a personal level to know as well, right? Because I'm sure everything has a trade-off, right?
Correct?
If you're making
Everything
time for
has a
something,
trade-off.
I
You're
am
you're
not-
letting go of something.
Yeah, but no, I've not heard that before again, so I think that's interesting. But let's take a step back, Aisha, right? Like that's so beautiful. That's a different part of your life now. Now that you have all the wisdom, having built a company, having been on the other side as an investor, but now you're a dad, right? This is your baby in the real sense of it. How's it being like being a father?
Look, I'll be really honest with you. I was really scared.
Yeah.
I was like super stressed. Trisha was always ready. She's been ready for 5 years. I wasn't, and I was really stressed. I was like, I don't know. How will I be as a dad? Will I be able to manage things? Will I be able to take care of things? And I think what I've learned, and obviously Rohit is a good friend of both of ours. And I spoke to a bunch of people before I became a parent. And I think Rohit said one very important thing. He said, give time, but do it your own way. And so, if your own way of parenting is spending quality time with your kid, but then being able to go to work for 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day in the office, and not being there for her bedtime every single day, whenever you can be there, it's okay. If you guys want to still have a life outside of being at home, and you have help or you have family that can take care of it, don't feel guilty to go out for dinner. Don't feel guilty to go to a friend's birthday party. Don't feel guilty to go to a friend's wedding. Don't. Do it your way. And we found our own way. We've struck our own balance. We are obviously both working people, so we are a little bit more chilled on the laissez-faire, as they say, on the parenting. So we are okay if the baby goes to my parents' house, goes to spend time with my grandmom, goes to my in-laws' house, spends time there. We're fine. We're chilled about those kind of things. And we want her to be friendly with a lot of people and everyone to have a relationship with the baby, right? Because like the joy I've seen my mom get from my baby, I've never seen her get from any of us. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to
precious.
share as well.
Yeah. No, for sure, I think. But this is a different phase of your life.
Absolutely.
So it'll be very interesting to see how it pans out. Let's take a different direction to the conversation. You've now seen, the Indian consumer ecosystem in a very different, interesting lens. You've built, you've invested, you've seen the business cycles, you've seen how it is right now, you've seen the mad cycles as well, right? What do you think has changed, right, when it comes to consumer businesses? Has it become more difficult to build? Has it become easier to build but difficult to scale? What are your just learnings from a point of view of change of what things were in Indian D2C maybe 2070 versus what it is right now?
Yeah, lots has changed, Jivraj. I think we didn't have a ecosystem, an industry belief. Then the industry started getting built with the first cohort of brands like us, like Mamaearth, Mom's Co, Wow, Boat, Licious, etc. And then investors started believing, people started believing, consumers started believing, started buying, and then we had COVID, right? And in COVID, we had a crazy boom.
Yeah.
The era of D2C, the decade of D2C, all of these terms were like just being sort of thrown around, right? And then we had this period of rationalization where offline opened again. And so what's happened now is the market is definitely more competitive.
Right.
Customer acquisition costs are an all-time high. But if I were to look at what a founder should do in this market, right? One, you cannot build a Me Too brand because there are hundreds of Me Toos.
Right.
You have to find a moat of differentiation for you to succeed. Two, CAC is at an all-time high. If you're only reliant on performance marketing that everybody else can do, it's totally democratized.
Correct.
And anybody can do it. You are in deep trouble because you will keep having the law of diminishing marginal utility in terms of your cost of acquisition. Three, customer experience has become significantly heightened. Speed of delivery, quality of packaging, unboxing experience, post-purchase customer journey. All of these things have to be at a certain standard or else you're killed.
Right.
And the last thing I would say is, in all of this, there are certain categories that have gotten very competitive. For example, personal care, right? Where there's lots of players, etc. And there are certain categories where interesting niches still exist. And so for founders building today, in a market which I think is now mature, you need to find these niches.
Right.
And execute further in these niches. Because now in fashion or in personal care, there are lots of brands already. Not that there are no niches available, but there are lots of brands.
Got it. And from a macro lens, you believe in the India story. We'll have multiple consumer brands. How will India 2 or India B or whatever they say, right? How will they get the brands of today and not a HUL, not a ITC?
I think that you have to be close to that customer, right? And understand the needs of that customer. Spotify didn't build Cuckoo FM type product. Cuckoo FM built Cuckoo FM type product because Spotify built a product for us.
Right.
And there is an equivalent of us who does not speak English and lives in Muzaffarnagar, who also wants to consume Psychology of Money and Rich Dad Poor Dad. There is an equivalent of us who is sitting in Kochi who wants to apply for a Kerala government job or wants to learn coding, but they don't speak English well enough and they want to learn Malayalam. There have to be businesses built for those that understand the unique customer nuance.
Right.
Dr. Vaidya did not advertise in English. When I realized my customer is 75% of my customers didn't speak English. So why am I advertising in English? Why do I have minimalistic packaging that appeals to me?
Correct.
I think deeply understanding the customer nuance, the behavior, and removing personal bias from our behavior is the best way for a consumer founder to really establish product market fit.
Perfect. Over the years, you've also seen some really phenomenal brands, right? You've built a great brand yourself. You are founders with folks who've built great brands. What do you think founders per se get right when it comes to their team in a consumer brand? And what do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that firstly identifying that you need a team early on, right? Like I made that mistake. I didn't hire a team early enough while running Dr. Vaidya's, and that was a big learning for me.
Right.
We thought we could do everything ourselves. So identifying that you need to hire a team early enough and then empowering the team. I think in D2C there are so many aspects to business. Think about my business. There was procurement, supply chain, legal, R&D, and the factory side. Then there was sales, distribution, marketing, strategy. And then on the admin side there's legal, HR, IT, admin, finance.
Wow.
2 founders, 15 functions, 25, 26 years old. Obviously, you need to empower your team and create people who can take some burden off you so you can focus on what you're good at while hiring subject matter experts and can focus on what they're good at.
Yeah. Got it. I think that's so on point. As I was thinking, the other bit that you have an advantage of is meeting so many people and maybe if not having a pattern, but recognizing what outlier founders really mean, right? You've now seen so many of your peers, yourself, investing in companies also gives you that lens. If you had to summarize for us what an outlier founder looks like, what would you say?
I think one thing and one thing only: tremendous clarity of thought. At a Series A, Series B stage, it's very easy to have clarity of thought because actually you have gone through the journey, you figure out what your PMF is and you're scaling that.
Correct.
But at a seed stage, at a pre-seed stage, to have clarity of thought on what you want to do. Look, it may not work out.
Right.
But having that clarity of thought to say, I want to do this and I'm doing this for this reason and I'm doing this because this customer has this problem and this is my solution. Now, if it doesn't work out, you will pivot, etc., all of that. But that clarity of thought is what outlier founders have. They just know. When you step out of a conversation with the founder saying, yeah, it was very clear to me. It was not like kind of, maybe, could be this, could be that. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I'll win. And this is how I'll get there.
Clarity of thought. And how do you gauge that? Over the years, have you developed?
I've done more than 1,000 founder conversations now, right? Through my various conversations as an investor, as a mentor, advisor, educating, etc., all of that. When you leave that conversation being clear about what they've said,
Yeah. So it's clear to you as well. The clarity
to
transcends.
at that point or in that situation, the customer, right?
Very interesting, very interesting. This can be a really good North Star. But cool, I think, I wanted to gauge your experience of what it means to have spoken to D2C founders, have been a D2C founder, and have peers around you. The last bit there is, we talk about marketing and so often used, right? And performance marketing is a big thing now. But there are only distinct brands which have like a recall. What do you think about what founders get right when you have to build distinct recall rather than just mass appeal?
I think if I talk about brand, right, especially in the consumer space, a very clear definition of brand means much more than a logo. There are actually 9 steps to brand.
Wow.
There is vision, mission, spider diagram with 3 words and qualities, competitive landscape, and finding the white space for your brand. Identifying, look, brand is a person. So identifying the tone of voice. Like you see Indigo Airline, they have a tone of voice, right?
Right.
It's fun, quirky, blue and white, right? So then tone of voice for the brand. Then the logo, leading to a visual style guide and a brand manual.
Correct.
Then an implementation across the organization. So you have this logo, style guide, tone of voice, vision, mission, statement, one-liner, qualities, etc., personality. Now you got to go and implement. Like if you go to Starbucks, anywhere in the world, Starbucks looks like Starbucks, right? The color, the branding, the tables, the mug with the same look and feel with the name written on the mug, that's implemented across organization, right? And then the 9th step, which I think is also very important, at least for me, is founder wearing brand on sleeve and embodying the brand. I think these 9 steps are what leads to cult brands, iconic brands versus just any and everything.
Got it. That's incredible. The other bit, that I really want to quickly understand from you is the retail aspect. And we've had this conversation over dinner, etc. But this retail expansion for new age brands is not the most intuitive thing, but it looks like it has to happen, right? However, you also mentioned that until you build recall, that is strong enough for consumers to actually find your product in retail stores, it doesn't matter even if you build retail distribution.
Correct. Like if you think about this, there is no golden number at which you say, okay, now I'm ready for retail. So there's no golden number, right?
Right.
But the right time to hit retail is when you've established your product market fit on D2C, and then your brand is built and consumers go to those retail stores and ask for your product.
Correct.
Then the retailer will give you your terms of trade, as opposed to you trying to push the product, pay the listing fee, give the 50-60% margin and lose money on every order.
Correct. Yeah. No, talk to us more about that, because a lot of the early D2C founders perhaps don't envision how important retail will be a part of their brand. But inevitably, we're all seeing, I think, that retail has to be a core strategy for any brand to reach the heights of scale that we expect brands to reach. How does that get enabled?
Yeah, look, I think it's a different animal altogether. Yeah. It requires a different skill set, a different expertise, a different infrastructure, a different way to do business, right? Now, the best founders identify this and build teams within teams. So when I talk to family business and they say, I want to go online, I'm like, build an online team within your team.
Right.
Don't get your existing offline GT retail team to build online. And similarly, if you're an online team who's
Build
used to
an
dealing with
offline team.
marketplaces and performance marketing, etc., if you want to build a GT team or an MD team or a distribution team, it has to be that ethos,
Correct.
that vibe, that culture, that environment. You have to accept that.
Right.
Only then will your brand succeed on that channel as well.
Got it. Perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense. Very interestingly, the other aspect of what I want to cover as a part of the episode is, the investor lens, but more from how institutional investing and angel investing works, right? Because you have both these thoughts now. You've been at a PE fund where you interned and worked at before you had the Dr. Vaidya's journey. So you've raised capital, you've now been an investor, you've been at PE, you are an angel investor and an institutional investor. Talk to us about these different levels of evaluation, right? And how this works, because from the outside it seems very daunting, but there are similarities and differences.
Yeah, I would say that in angel investment, it's like investing your own money.
Mm-hmm.
You're not accountable to anyone. You can take a call that's binary outcome. You can take a punt and you can say, I really like this person. Maybe they don't have the idea yet. Let's see what happens and just put some money to work there, right? In institutional investing, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to really be thesis driven. You have to really have conviction. And you are investing, I am investing my money, but somebody else's money as well. Right? I invest my own money in every deal that the fund does as well. And so that aligns interest, but there are certain deals I could have never done from the fund. They may have been very successful for me now and may have been very unsuccessful for me now. But you have to have a different level of conviction.
Correct.
When you're making an institution, because institutions will make 4, 5, 6, 7 investments a year. Like I make up to 6 investments a year from the fund. And so I have to love those 6 companies and really believe in those 6 companies and those founders.
Yeah. But as a founder turned investor, what do you think are, everybody talks about more operator turned VCs. We don't have enough in the ecosystem. In fact, part of my conversation with Rohit was about this. He now has an institutional fund. You're running one yourself. How do you think that mindset is beneficial? Also, what do you think are the downsides, right? Because founders tend to know a lot about how to run businesses, which can actually, if not cloud judgment, not make you as optimist as you need to be as an investor, right? How do you navigate that piece?
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons of being a founder turned investor. The pros are founders will be open to you more. You'll understand the nuances of their journey more. And I've heard that we ask better questions because we get the basics, right?
Right.
The cons are you second guess things. You use your own experience to believe that certain things are not possible. And because you've done it, you may not be able to take a very disruptive bet because you think it cannot be disrupted, right? So I think we need more operator turned VCs in the ecosystem to balance out.
Correct.
But there are pros and cons of being an operator. And sometimes I'm just not able to wrap my head around something because it just seems like it's impossible. But only when you dream those kind of things do you really create what is now
What is maybe
changing
possible.
the world, right?
Yeah. Wow, that's very articulate. I think that's the most articulate bit I've heard on this piece, and I think that sums it up really, really well. As we, maybe go to the last parts of what we want to discuss, coming back to your persona, I think one thing that I've really observed is how curious and willing to learn you still are, right? There's always this sense of early curiosity about everything. Part of what you write is also how you take inspiration from a bunch of things that happen around you, be it sport, be it family, be it health, etc. Talk to us about this system, right? Not a lot of people are very easily able to learn, although might have the intent to learn from other people or take inspiration from. Do you have a method to this?
Look, I think I'm just generally curious, right? I really want to learn more things. Every time someone tells me about a new company, about a new founder, about a new idea, I read a new article, I read something new, I want to know.
Yeah.
So I think that learner mindset or that improvement mindset has been ingrained in me. But I think the other thing is I live in India. And there is just so much happening
to know.
that is so exciting in our country.
Yeah.
How do you stay away from it? Like, how do you...
Correct.
Someone asked me what keeps me up at night. The Indian startup ecosystem keeps me up at night.
So
because
much
there
is
is so
happening.
much happening every single day.
Yeah.
And then someone asked me, the market seems down, funding winter, are you getting less deal flow? I'm like, no, India's a huge country.
Yes.
We're in a very,
So
very big country, lots of people building amazing things. So,
correct.
yeah, I think the mindset and the curiosity is there. It's part of my persona, my being, but we're in India and India is just happening right now.
So true, so true. It perfectly defines the opportunity and what it should do to you. The excitement really shows. The other bit, the India story is so powerful, and fortunately, you go to so many places to talk, to interact with people. We met at Surat, which was great, right? Talk to us about some of the non-obvious things that you have observed about the Indian startup ecosystem that maybe not everybody gets to see because of just lack of access, etc. Right?
Sure.
But you've been to so many other cities. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, number one, people are nice and humble. Anybody's open to have a conversation.
Great.
Even if it's a unicorn founder, they're like, yeah, okay, we'll talk. We've been there also, we'll talk, right?
So true.
That's one. Two, there is real action happening outside the top 5 cities of our country. And all of us should go and experience it and go and support it. India will become a global superpower in the digital space, in the startup space, only if we have 10 more Bombays, 10 more Delhis, 10 more Bangalore's.
True.
Only then, right? So the founder from Indore should not have to move out of Indore.
Yeah.
And that's all our responsibility. That's why
Very
if
true.
someone calls me from outside the top 5 cities to deliver a talk or be at an event, I try my best to make it.
Yeah.
I've gone to Chandigarh, I've gone to Shillong, I've gone to Guwahati, I've gone to Surat, I've gone to Kochi, I've gone all of these places
Yeah.
because nobody goes there.
Exactly.
Right?
Can you give us some stories here? Any stories that come to mind, like some interaction that blew your mind?
Yeah, so I went to Kochi for Startup Kerala had some event, Kerala Startup Mission, sorry. And then the day before, so someone saw my name on some flyer and said, hey, you're coming to Kochi. And I was doing morning, evening. He's like, can we meet, can we organize a session for you in Kochi with D2C founders? I was like, sure. But I'm doing morning, evening. He said, can you come the night before? I was like, okay, chal, I'll come the night before to Kochi. I don't mind. He organized a session with 80 D2C founders from all over Kerala. People had driven 4-5 hours to be there for that session.
Wow.
I asked them, why did you come to see me? They were like, nobody comes here. Nobody comes to our city. And that really made me think that's a problem. And at least I need to do my bit to sort of solve that.
That's so wonderful. No, yeah, that goes to show, I think, very, very important learnings. Anything else about the India story that's distinct?
The other thing is, we are very optimistic about India, but sometimes the level of action, enthusiasm and what's happening in India seems unfathomable for someone outside of India. Right? And so I think we need to get more people to come and visit India and see what's happening here in our market and our economy. I think that's the second thing.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I think that might be true because it's just like you have to be here to witness the action. Otherwise, very difficult to imagine.
You got to be on the ground.
Got it. Very interesting. The other bit is, Arjun, you've always, been this great, happy person. Tell us about not the bad days, not the sad days, but when it gets tough, right? Like, what do you fall back on in terms of just support system? Who are the people that inspire you a lot? You've spoken a lot about sport. That gives you a lot of motivation. But what is it in the business world and just your personal world that you go back to when the days are not as green?
I don't go back to anyone in the business world when days are not great. It's only my family. My wife, my parents, my grandmom, my brother, my sister-in-law, my aunt, my cousins. They're the only people who get to see when things are going wrong.
Yeah.
I don't really open that world to the rest of the world, and so that's the only place I go to and have a really strong support system. And I think every entrepreneur needs that strong support system because it's a very hard journey. It's got lots of ups and downs. It's as much an business roller coaster as an emotional roller coaster.
So true.
And being in a place where the home is positive, the home is a place of support is really important for any entrepreneur.
Absolutely, and it shows. Very, very glad to hear that. The other thing, I ask a lot of founders, a lot of investors on my show, Arjun, is that how do your founders define you, right? And if you had to tell us how your founders, the folks that you've invested in,
I hope they would say energetic, enthusiastic and helpful. I hope they
that
would
I
say
can
that.
attest to as well, even
they would say
without
that.
being a part of the portfolio. But yeah, I think that summarizes much of what you do. The other bit is, a lot of people talk about this mission. With Dr. Vaidya's, this mission was the family legacy. What do you think is the mission when it comes to investing for you personally? And what is it that still keeps you up at night?
Enabling the next generation of founders. If I can in some way impact 1,000 founders through investment, mentorship, advice, guidance, then I've done my bit, right? So my first mission was building doctors and taking it forward. Now can I enable the next 1,000 doctor Vedas? And there are many more that need to be enabled. But if I can do my bit to do that, then I've done something for the country, for the startup ecosystem, and for myself.
Amazing. That perfectly fits well. The other bit, that I find very fascinating and struggle with personally is that there's so much happening. In a world where you have to do, you have to execute, you also have to, keep up, you also have to then reflect. How do you do all of that?
I don't know. I don't think there are enough hours in the day to do all of
as
this.
Well, right? Like so much is happening.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised.
I don't think there's enough hours in the day to do this.
Right.
And I think that's the problem we have. We live in a country where there's so much action that you can't stop.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing and a bad thing.
Got it. Perfect. I think for the last question, and this has been so lovely. It was all that I imagined it would be before the show. I was so excited. I'm glad it came out the way it has. But this is a stereotypical question, but not in a negative light, which is to say that if you could go back to yourself on day one of building Dr. Vaidya's with all that you know about the funding ecosystem, about founders, about people that you've invested in, what could you not do differently, but what would you tell yourself in terms of just guiding principles?
Dude, it's going to be much harder than you expected it would be. Startups to me seem very glamorous on the outside.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a grind.
Yeah.
Any startup is a grind. There's lots of ups and downs, and be ready for some really hard times, I think. Overall, I'm a big fan of the journey. I think I would not change anything in my journey.
Of course.
But I didn't anticipate how hard it would be when I started off.
Yeah, I think that early naive energy helps, right?
Absolutely.
Super. I think this is great. Thank you so much, Arjun, for being on the show. For all that you do, more importantly, and for how kind, supportive, and how much this friendship means to me. Thank you so much.
I think this was an episode that I was looking forward to doing, and it means a lot for me to be on this podcast, and it's just a special conversation for me. I talked about things I've never spoken about before, so thank you for having me.
Pleasure's all, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.